exploring Accompong's resilience post-Melissa, its leadership dialogues, and cultural preservation efforts.
We told him that he should make this his home, and I don't know what happened. Him run from home in a way, what? But you know, them said the prodigal returns, right? So I guess we have to look upon him like the prodigal son. I'm just joking, people. This man is quite busy, and the Accompong people and their leadership, remarkable people, and I guess by extension, all our way, are Maroons, all our way involved in this thing. But those people in the forefront, they've been doing a lot of good work, and they've been fighting the struggle. It hasn't been easy, and we've read in the newspapers. We have heard it on social media as well as traditional media, mainstream media, and we've heard the word of mouth about the struggles that they've encountered and they continue to encounter. And what was interesting for me was that the Prime Minister ended up some time ago in an argument, a fracas with the people from Accompong. And I was kind of surprised when I saw that he made his way to Accompong just, I think, sometime this week. And he was well received. I saw photographs. I heard him speaking. And then I saw a release from Chief Curry and essentially saying, thank you very much, but no thanks for sending we don't want military people in our space. You know what? I don't want to steal Ambassador Annu's thunder. I'll just bring him on, and then if Chief Curry is with him, we can have a conversation, the three of us. If not, Ambassador Annu is well equipped to deal with any questions we may have to ask. But it's not so much a matter of question and answer. It's more a matter of a discussion to find out what's going on with our brothers and sisters in Accompong. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Ambassador Annu. Bless up, my brethren.
Greetings, brother Rattigan. How you doing, man?
You know, me on top of the world always, and I look out of my eye. You know, can't look at my ears, but if you look out of your ears, that means your dog's a problem.
That's right, man. Peace be upon you and blessings to, all your viewers and the Jamaican citizens, the wider diaspora, and of course, my Maroon brothers and sisters across the world.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you on behalf of everyone. Talk to us about, you know what, we have if you don't mind, if you don't mind, I just want to just put this video up because I don't know if everyone saw it. And oh, here it is. Here it is. Please indulge us. Let me just put this up.
Sure.
Ashe. Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Andrew Holness, on behalf of the Indigenous people of Accompong and the wider Maroon districts of Cockpit Country, I send sincere appreciation for your recent visit to our community and for the government of Jamaica's expression of support following the destruction caused by Hurricane Melissa. Your presence, accompanied by the several ministers of government, marked the first official visit of your administration to Accompong since my election in 2021, and it was warmly welcomed by our people. We remain grateful for the humanitarian gesture extended to the Accompong people and for your willingness to mobilize resources, particularly those of the JDF military, to assist with the recovery efforts. We also acknowledge your reference on international partners, including Ethiopia, Ghana, and Rwanda, who have expressed readiness to assist in the island's rebuilding efforts. Honorable Prime Minister, following a deep, comprehensive internal review and a formal deliberation, the full Maroon Council has this time decided not to accept the offer on the militarization of the space during the recovery effort. The full Maroon Council instead has resolved to continue with the response, utilizing civilian resources from our joining communities and our partners, both locally and internationally, who have offered to the community their assistance in the recovery efforts. Instead, the Council would like to thank you for the offer and materials and would accept the offer on those materials and equipment necessary to assist in those recovery efforts. We want to ensure, Mr. Prime Minister, that harmony and inclusiveness of our Maroon human resources, of those here in Accompong and adjoining communities, are balanced to execute the infrastructural relief efforts across our Maroon communities. This methodology aligns with our laws and cultural way of life. This decision is based also on the following considerations. 1. The established reconstruction partnerships and resources Accompong has secured through international donations, through technical sponsorships, and volunteer engineering assistance sufficient to address the rebuilding and development needs arising from the blockade.
But let me just stop it right now and say, ladies and gentlemen, we're joined by Chief Richard Curry. Welcome, Chief Curry. In the interest of time, and because we have you here, you tell me if you want me to continue playing the video, or would you like me to just have the discussion with you so everybody can join in if they feel like, and they can hear from you as opposed to a recording. Tell me if you want me to continue, or your choice.
Greetings and good night, Rattigan. Thank you for having us. Are you hearing me clearly?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right, thank you. So the video is posted on my Instagram page, so once you can view it there. But essentially, in summarizing, I want to make it clear there was no denial of acceptance of help from the government or the Prime Minister himself. What we explicitly stated was a concern over the military being used as a resource to execute those recovery efforts, considering many other circumstances, particularly one maintaining certain harmony within the space. You know, there has been tension, there is past, there are things that are to be resolved. On top of that, there's still trauma from the storm. There are a lot of people still having concerns. And additionally, we do have the skilled men. We do have partnerships with persons locally and persons who in the diaspora have committed to offer their assistance. And from that end, we know from a resource standpoint, we would be able to cover the repairs. So it is being taken out of context and means it is being positioned as a rejection, where it is totally not a rejection. We actually had a good conversation. We sat down and we spoke of the different things that needed to be done. And I did raise a concern that, you know, this is something we have to go through with the council in terms of the military and the concerns that we do have having the military in the space doing that work.
Okay. Well, allow me to ask you this. I think I know the answer, but I'll ask you for those who are those inquiring minds. People would like to know why did you accept the offer of assistance from everyone except the military? And this is to both you and Ambassador. You're muted.
Chief, yeah. So regarding the specificity of the military, it's not that Accompong has a specific problem with the JDF, meaning the Jamaica Defense Force, in terms of a personal problem, or for that matter, was there any tension with the Jamaica Defense Force? That's not the issue. The issue is stemming from just looking at the antecedents, how we have come to this point. And within the last 5 years, unfortunately, it is obvious to everyone that the Accompong Maroons has been asking for constructive dialogue, right? To be able to have a seat at the table where we can flesh out certain concerns regarding the constitutional reform that was presented at the time through the ministry that was changed now, and speaking of a republic. These are very much concerning topics to the Accompong Maroons. Why? Because in 1962, because there was not a proper effort to try and sort out or flesh out what was going to happen with the Maroons with this new constitution in 1962. And we have that evidence. We have archived evidence from both governments, from the Jamaica archives and both the British archives, of what was happening just before, of months before, in the House of Commons regarding the Maroons and the new constitution that was going to be put together, which is the Ordering Council of 1962. Now we're at a point again where we're discussing removing of the king. The Accompong Maroons legitimately have a legal document that testifies and recognizes the legitimacy of the claims to land and the legitimacy to the claims of having a people and a government and a defined territory. Now, these are elements that allow the Accompong Maroons to be recognized on an international scale, even under the atmosphere of autonomy. And because we have the autonomy and we've been governing ourselves for a very long time now, the treaty is almost 288 years old, 8 years old, come January, after we cross over into the new year. on March 1st. And we are now going to say that, for the 63 years of the government of the Jamaica, the Maroons have had, a relationship that has not been fully concrete or fleshed out. There's just this gray area in the law. Chief Curry's administration has come over the last 4.5, going 5 years, trying to press, this issue of the claim and the claims to lands. Why we always hear about bauxite mining in cockpit country, the effects that it's having to people. But most people, it doesn't really bother them. In terms of if you live in Kingston or you live in other parishes, it's not really your concern day to day as much as it is the Maroons who have to wake up to it every morning in those territories. No, because of these things, we have to look at. Here we are now, right before the election of Chief Richard Curry come February, the Accompong Maroon election, which happens every 5 years. And right after Hurricane Melissa, after we've had 4 weeks of constant hurricane relief from the Accompong disaster response team under the leadership of Chief Richard Curry, we have been doing logistically magic, and that's the only way I can say it, because we've really put together, the great minds, hard workers, and we've been able to unify certain resources with international aid, and we've been able to get to our people. I think the last count I had was almost 24 different communities that Accompong itself has gotten. Now imagine Accompong got hit with the eye wall, pretty much devastation across all of the Maroon territories, and yet Accompong has been able to go out and still share to 24 communities relief aid, not just once, but some areas got done twice. Now it shows that Accompong is able to manage its own internal affairs and logistics because we have had a system of working with people over a number of years. Now, when the government of Jamaica finally decides to come just at the 11th hour on whether unfortunate or unfortunate, whichever way it wants to be looked at, that whoever on whichever side of the fence. The matter is that they came, they were well received, but I believe it was very premature that a statement or a declaration of the JDF being offered, and it was more of like an assertion than an offer when you start to listen to the statements that were made. And then Chief Richard Curry would have reached out in the back channels to ensure that his voice or the office of the chief would have been placed on the record in terms of thank you, but no thanks to this specific part, which is the militarization. I would say, Rattigan, that we sent off that on, I think it was December the 3rd. And then sometime later in the evening, we saw an official post from the JDF Instagram page. And when you read the caption of it, it says that the JDF was mandated to come to Accompong town. Now, you are a man of the law. You understand these words and these terms. And it's a military. So when the military is saying that they're mandated to go somewhere, and Chief Richard Curry nor anybody in the council had a definitive conversation with the Prime Minister concluding or accepting that when we were in person. Now, to kind of see these political maneuvers happening around us, it was only right that, with the autonomy of the full Maroon Council and the office of the chief, that there was some form of stance to kind of balance the equation here. So that is why Accompong would say that we accepted the offer for humanitarian aid because we were accepting it from everyone, internationally. We want humanitarian aid to reach to our people, but in essentially boots on the ground, carrying assault rifles. That is a different topic, Rattigan, and I believe that needs to be looked at in the interest of the elders, the women, the children, not just overall just a random act of, let's say, rejection.
Chief Curry.
Yes, greetings again, Rattigan and audience. I think the ambassador covered it well, and I think, again, I reiterate that all we have done is reposition the execution of the aid, and what we would prefer, and I believe it's reasonable, to have an input in what happens going forward, as we have been planning and coordinating with others from the private sector, from the diaspora, and locally on the ground. It's difficult to essentially override all that's been done. we'd look for more collaboration in executing the work that needs to be done. And I say it and say it again. All these communities need help, and that's the mission, to give the help.
All right. Well said to both of you. You stated your point. Let me ask you this. The Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management is currently led by a military person. The permanent secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister is a military person. Now, we know that military people, they're not trained to have discussions. They're trained to follow orders. And so when you said mandated, it makes sense to me that there was a mandate. There's no discussion. I mean, somebody said, put this up, it's up. Do this, and it's done. Having said that, tell me about, because I was going to make a statement, but I want to hear from you first before I make a statement. Tell me about the issue concerning a water treatment plant that was supposed to come in for the Maroons, but there were some hiccups at the port and the government got involved. And how, if you can give me a concise version of what took place, because I'm trying to connect the dots.
Well, I don't know how much essentially both things are just connected, like, in sync wise, because it's just an overall issue, as I've been saying to you, Rattigan, that we've been having a communication issue, right? A dialogue issue. Accompong did send out numerous communications to the Minister of Finance regarding, the tax concessions that we would want to discuss regarding the water machine coming in at the time. The issue really would have stemmed with the customs at that specific time regarding double taxation, or just trying to find ways to constantly trying to apply a tax after the manufacturer would have explained that, this was humanitarian aid and everything coming in both containers was actually one unit together. So it shouldn't be taxed in various ways. We essentially got past that, but I'm happy that you brought the water machine up, because this particular part, and I hope you can cut it and put this out as a short, right? Because man, this particular part that I'm about to say, because it's going to prove that Chief Richard Curry and the Accompong Maroons have no issue with the Jamaica Defense Force, the JDF. Essentially, when within 24 hours after the impact of Hurricane Melissa, the first thing that Chief Richard Curry and his council started to think about was trying to get back up the water machine up and running, right? Essentially, because our water machine can produce north of 300 gallons, to 350 gallons of water per day, all right? It has a whole solar system attached to it that powers it, so it's fully independent. Now, these two containers were actually tipped over on their side and almost went over the hill. So we needed to find the easiest ways to try and actually put these containers right side up and actually pull back out the machinery so that we can get back to business. Chief Curry actually asked for, when we saw the helicopters flying over, some of them were JDF helicopters. We asked if one of the helicopters, or if there was a helicopter on the island that could provide assistance with lifting the container as we could move it right side up. Chief Curry actually asked for, when we saw the helicopters flying over, some of them were JDF helicopters. We asked if one of the helicopters, or if there was a helicopter on the island that could provide assistance with lifting the container as we could move it right side up. Those phone calls were made, and to confirm, Rattigan, none of that was we didn't get any assistance from anybody, right? Even though we made those requests. No helicopter was sent specifically for the water machine. We got many other helicopters for other reasons, how Chief Curry had to make some connections through his network, right? But we are the ones who had to tip over that machine, those containers ourselves, using tractors and Maroon ingenuity. But it is to show you that we have no issue or confrontation with the Jamaica Defense Force, or for that matter, some ulterior motive why we want to reject them. It's just a matter of a concern that without the mutual dialogue in terms of the dignity for both parties on the side to be able to have a conversation, it is very unfair to be able to just come into this space, after such a long time and start to, dictate how the relationship is going to go. But the water machine is up and running. We did have that small hiccup, Rattigan, but that Rattigan, whether it is known, we don't even know who would have made phone calls, or as you're kind of maybe alluding to, who is trying to slow the progress, right? But as things come in, yes, we do find that sometimes we do have problems or a pushback, or as we would say, resistance. But Maroons find a way to resolve it.
And the connection I'm trying to make in terms of connecting the dots is that as a people, what we've been seeing is a recalcitrance on the part of the government, an unwillingness to, as you said, sit down at the table and try and come to some accord. And we saw evidence of it when with the I think it was with the lumber. We saw evidence of it with the redesignation of lands, and now we're seeing. You saw evidence of it with the water, and now we're seeing evidence of it. So the point I'm trying to make is that it appears that as I'm saying, everywhere you turn Makajuki, it's like you can't get a break with these folks. They don't sit down with you and say, okay, all right, you know what? We are going to treat you as equals. It's almost as if I just say a mandate that they said no. And remember what the Prime Minister said, that there's only one sovereign government in Jamaica, right? Them now have no other government, it's just one.
Right.
Essentially saying we don't recognize you as any government, and whatever you're claiming, we don't recognize it. Let me move on and ask you about Melissa. How much damage was done to your area, and how much rebuilding has taken? How much rebuilding efforts have been put into getting you back up to where you were, and maybe beyond?
All right. So let me, before I even go into that, Rattigan, just touch back a little bit on what you just mentioned in terms of dialogue. I think where we left Sunday was a good space, right?
Oh.
I think it was a good place where we opened dialogue, sat down, like two big men, and had a conversation. And I think it was the beginning of the building of trust. And I would believe that that still exists and that door remains open. And I do not think anything has happened, this is my personal opinion, to change that, right? Okay. So I will continue and progress in the affirmative that Accompong, in collaboration with the government of Jamaica, will work through efforts to bring assistance to those who need it. I am working in the affirmative, meaning the positive. It is going to happen, and it's going to happen in collaborative, right? So let's start by addressing the damage, right? Majority of homes in Accompong were damaged. And when I say damage, I mean approximately 80% of the homes suffered a significant amount of damage. The others that sustained were all slab roof homes, right? And more recent constructions. Majority of the homes in Accompong were decades ago. So the style and the material, the grade, all of those things would have weathered over time, as well as not in today's world be considered, of the right code, construction code, so to speak. So what you find is that even though there are homes that stood up and had their roofs torn off, some of them have structural damage, either cracked walls, shifting foundation, that sort of thing. So simply putting back a roof on top is not going to be the response or the answer, because you're pretty much building on matchsticks at that point. And what we've been looking at is how best do we utilize the funds that we have raised so far to address as many as we can address with the concerns that are deemed urgent. So we look at the elders, we look at the single parents, and we look at the indigent, those with disabilities and so on, right? We try to target those households. The intention in the first phase, Rattigan, is to cover approximately 50 homes, right, to be either reconstructed or renovated, right? None of this will be done overnight, right? As you can see, all those areas that are affected, many of them are still in a state of disrepair because, one, there's a challenge in getting materials. Two, the price in which you're getting the material fluctuates. Everywhere we go, it's a different price, right? Three, ensuring that we have the right strategy to deploy these materials, and what we aim to do is the key thing. Because here's a commitment that I've made and I've spoken to my council about. In the next year, we endeavor to ensure every home in Accompong will have one hurricane-proof roof, right? That will act as your bunker or your shelter should we ever face another storm like Melissa. Because what we found was a significant vulnerability that we faced due to the storm, and that a lot of that has stemmed from the method of construction, and the practices that have been put to play in times gone by. We now have to act with a bit more intelligence and also act precisely, because we don't have a second chance at this. We're not sure we'll be as lucky this time around to be able to be in the situation that we're at, to call on our diaspora, to call on our Maroon families, to be able to contribute to our rebuilding in this way. So we have to be able to ensure that what we do with prudence, we do with effectiveness, and we do it with preciseness. So that's what the work has been. What you're looking at there is the rebuild of some of the low-income housing that were demolished in Accompong. And this I've been working through with Icontech Construction, a local construction entity who has offered their engineering services for free and architectural services for free to aid in the reconstruction and the development of our community. So we presented this to the community. They all liked it. The aesthetics have been enhanced, and we're going back with more sturdy materials. We're looking at the roofing. What suggestion do we have for the roofing is the question. Many people are using zinc aluminum roofing. We want to set the roofing in such a way that there's no way for the wind to get under it and lift it off ever again. So all this will be rolled out in the next couple of days, Rattigan, because in the background, we've been putting together a plan to ensure that at the end of this, no home will be left in the open like we've seen over the last month, sorry.
One of the things that we heard from the government, at least we heard it in the diaspora, was that Jamaica had 881 shelters. And I asked the question, do they have at least one hurricane proof, at least up to a level 3? We're not even talking about a 5 shelter. And we were given the understanding most, if not all of these shelters, they were schools, churches, community centers. And in fact, there's a lady who came on our program who said that there was one not too far from her, but she decided not to go because it was, her house was in better shape than the school. So she didn't go. And in fact, she related a story to us that somebody died. Was there a designated shelter near our near Accompong, and how many people went, and did you lose any? Was there a loss of life during Melissa in your constituency or in your area?
All right, so we have 2 designated shelters in the community. One of them is a primary school, Accompong Primary School, and the other one is the community center, which also houses the museum. But it's quite a large space and can accommodate up to 150 persons. Depending on the circumstances, of course, 150 would not be in a livable circumstance, but for sheltering the storm, yes. The school, the primary school, perhaps equivalent, and both were damaged, significantly damaged. The roofs were totally ripped off, both facilities during the storm, while persons were inside. So they had to then flee during the storm to seek secondary shelter, one of which turned out to be the tech center, which we recently began working on alongside one of our own bloodline and donor, Carol, who had worked with us to renovate that building, which would be housing the tech and entrepreneurial center. That was immediately transformed into the emergency shelter and now is the center of our distribution hub for relief supplies across the area. In the Mulgrave community, we had one unfortunate death. I've not been made aware of any other deaths resulting from Melissa in the period. But Accompong, we had no deaths. We had a few minor injuries, and of course, a few elders who remain in a slight state of trauma.
Sorry to hear about the devastation caused in your neighborhood. But thank God that many lives were spared, considering that the roof went away with people hunkering down in the shelter. It could have been far worse. ODPIM, it's almost 5 weeks, or what, 4.5 weeks since the hurricane. What assistance have you received from ODPIM, if any?
All right, forgive me, but if I'm wrong or incorrect, I would need that correction to be made public. But I have not been officially contacted by an official from ODPIM. We've been acting on best practices and what we know, having gone through storms before. And I think to the best of our abilities, the community really came together in the storm. I must commend the men of the community and some of the women as well, who during the storm, 180 plus mile per hour wind, were running through the streets amidst shearing winds and debris to go into houses to rescue elders. And I must say, without them, the story could have been quite different. They were able to also assist in getting the roads clear. So big salute to all the men who put in the muscle work and the women who risked and braved it to go out and make a difference in the community.
Here's a question that I don't know if you want to answer this, but you did mention that there is a February election coming up, correct?
Correct.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, the elections are constitutionally due in February, and before that, there is an enumeration period, and from that enumeration, there is a period for the allowance of finalization of voters list, etc. So there's obviously a hindrance in that process with the effect of the storm, and the Constitution permits for the extension of that period up to 3 months after the date in which it is due, constitutionally due, where there are extenuating circumstances. So the council is reviewing that process and seeing how best we can align ourselves to meet constitutionally the election that is due. So we are working through our communities and our representatives within the council, as well as the Board of Elders. The enumeration period was set for November, was set to begin November, and that would have been interrupted by the onset of Hurricane Melissa. So the elections will be had, but obviously in the state of our communities right now and what is happening on the ground, the more urgent requirements, of course, supersedes the election, which does not take away from its importance, but we aim to have it within the time that it is set to be had constitutionally.
Yeah. Who is eligible to vote in the election? Can I vote?
So Maroons by blood, Maroons by residency, meaning living within the period for a specific timeline and for over a specific period of time. And whether by marriage, naturalized Maroons are also eligible to vote. So there's a process, and that is also explained within the Constitution.
Okay, the reason I ask is because I was told that my grandmother was a Maroon. I can't verify it because she passed on. I think she passed on before I was born, but my mother used to tell me that. So if I said, well, you know what, I'm claiming my heritage through my grandmother, how would that be verified?
All right, so we normally start by utilizing the elders, the Board of Elders, and their knowledge. Right, in each community, we have elders and persons within the community. You know, some people in the community know everybody, right? And they know who they live next door for the last 40, 50 years type of thing. We have been able to utilize that method in tracking some of our lost families, right? And reconnecting them with their bloodline. So it starts by identifying where was your great-grandmother living? Where did they emanate from? What parish? What community? If you have that information, we can get to the bones of finding out what happened to your family and where your origins stem from. That essentially forms one of the bases for recognition and acknowledgement of your Maroon identity.
Let me throw this out. Anyone here can answer this. The Maroon celebration in January is known worldwide. It's a global thing. Everybody knows about it. Given Melissa and the aftermath, are there plans to hold it? Because I think it's in January. Are there plans to go forward with it, or is it subject to postponement like the election?
Okay, no. So January 6th must go on, Rattigan.
Must happen, Rattigan. Can't
high water.
Can't
must go on. It cannot happen, right? That will never happen. Right? The thing is this, Rattigan. It is not only a celebration, it is a sacred pilgrimage, right? To a very sacred space to commemorate a very special and unique moment in time, right? Where freedom as Black people never existed, right? The leaders of liberation stood up and reminded the world what Black empowerment and Black liberation looked. That's what that was, and that's what it continues to be. So for us, it's not a if or but or maybe, it must happen, right? And as the elder them, we say, ancestor them beat with the rest are here. If we don't do it, right? So we have to make sure. The plan is Rattigan, as you said. Let me just
indulge a bit. Yes, we've been heavily impacted by the hurricane, and everybody is looking to find out, what's going to happen, what's the situation. January 6th is obviously the opportunity for Maroons to earn a little income, earn something in their pocket, whether it's by renting stores or doing your own selling or participating, whatever it is, some form of commerce or engagement or tourism. This year will be a little different for the sake that what we're doing now is moving into the recovery phase of fixing our community. There's a lot of junk and debris still in Accompong. There's no light here. There's no electricity. We believe the focus this year should be around communal building. If you love the culture, if you love this heritage and what it stands for, we're asking for you to be a part of this rebuilding process. So for the 5th and the 6th of January, we'll be engaging in that rebuilding process, with the 5th being a major work day. And what we'll be doing, we'll be announcing very shortly, Rattigan, is a process by which persons can contribute and be a part of that. Because here's what the truth is. What we've raised so far will not be sufficient to complete the works that are necessary. So we want on the 6th of January, we have materials that we can pull on from hardware stores that we'll be partnering with. So that instead of paying an entrance fee to come at the January 6th festival, that money we're asking them to leave at a registry at one of the participating hardware stores, which will then be putting down on materials and dropping across different districts, as well as Accompong, to commence a work day from the 5th of January. We want to do a big bonfire and drum circle on the night to kind of bring some unity towards the mission and the vision. On the 6th, we want to do our usual Kinder March, Old Town procession, the usual cultural indulgence for the day. There will be food, there will be craft, but we're limiting the vending. Why? Because we're cleaning up the community. We're limiting the vending to the Maroon community, those emanating from the Maroon districts. Those are the persons who we're facilitating. Those are the persons who need the help. So we're not looking to have this huge, convergence of external vendors and persons, coming to take from the community. We're asking you to come and give to Accompong this year. Make a difference to help us build stronger and build more resilient. So bring your tools, come with your gloves, come with your tent, come with your hammock. We're going to pitch a night tent village, and we're going to have a bonfire, right? We're going to talk, we're going to vibe, and we're going to create an energy that is unique, that is harmonious with the times that we're in and what is required of the people. We now need to come together. And I think it's not about profiteering, it is now about doing that. So for me, for the council, and for the rest of Maroons, we are calling on the support for those who want to be a part of the celebration this year. Come and make it a tailgating event. Bring your igloo, bring your knife, bring your machete, bring your tools, and let's put in some work and try to help back some of the people who really need the help.
Yes, like somebody said, awesome idea. And if you would, we'll be in touch with your folks to get the. I like the idea of saying send the money to this place so that they can, we can get supplies from the hardware store, whatever. If we I'm sure producer Joan is going to reach out to your folks and get that, so we can put it up on our platform and tell people that here's a way that you can support the Maroon community. Because I tell you, Annu and Chief Curry, there's a great resistance in the diaspora, at least in our corner of the diaspora, to giving anything to the government to give to people. People have said, no, we will find a community. In fact, there's a plan to even adopt communities, adopt families, but they said, we're not giving anything to the government. We want to give directly to the community. And I think this is a brilliant idea for people to actually give to the community. And then they don't have to supervise it, because a lot of the containers and things, some of these people travel with it because they say, we want to make sure, because we can't trust certain people down here. So here they wouldn't have to supervise it. They can just send it and, and be safe in the knowledge that it is going where it is supposed to go. Let me switch and just ask Ambassador Annu this question. And of course, Chief Curry, I just ask him because I don't want the virgin, because I'm sitting there and I'm quiet, for a while. So I just want to bring him in the conversation. But of course, he can jump in. They just put up their Accompong Maroon disaster response team. Okay, good. Here's a question I want to ask. Chief Curry spoke eloquently about the January 5th, 6th event, and he talked about unity.
Yes.
Now, the door is open, as you said. discourse with the government to come to terms about the relationship. There have been some controversy regarding the Accompong Maroons and other Maroons. Can you tell us about any outreach for unity with those groups?
And let me start. I'm not sure if it's hearing, but at current, I don't think there are any tensions between Accompong and any of the other Maroons.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
What existed of past had been resolved. And what we've been doing is finding momentum and commonality in vision and goals to move forward. Recently, I had a meeting with the leaders of the other communities and spoke to them of Accompong partnering with them with certain farming initiatives as well as health and educational initiatives. That was right before the hurricane. So again, there are no tensions at the moment between Accompong and any of the other Maroon communities. If it does, it's beyond my knowledge.
Okay. I think Annu will think we. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry about that. No, I concur. Obviously, Chief has made it very clear already. We have no issues with any other Maroon community. We've always pushed unity from day one. I even go back to the highlight of Chief Richard Curry's administration being the first administration, especially out of the Leeward Maroons, to have invited Windward Maroon into our government, which was Alex Moore Minot. He was the Minister of Foreign Affairs at the time. That went well, and he saw that he had many other duties to do in the Windward territory as well. So, we are very connected to our Maroon communities. We ensured they have called us during this time to ensure that we were okay, and we've reached out and brought aid to the other Leeward communities as well.
Okay, outstanding. Because I prefer hearing it from you because when you hear stories second, third, fourth, and you're liable to get whatever that person's agenda is, whatever their motive is, and so I want to hear it from you.
We're good to go. Rattigan, let me tell you, I'm going to shoot right here from the hip. There are many propaganda stories out there, right? Hopefully, this interview helps to try and curb some of it. I know this is much more of an intellectual platform, but there are people out there that can be shaped and shifted by any form of narrative once it has to do with some political flavor, right? But I'll just leave this out there for the universe. We are not separatists. The Accompong Maroons are not separatists. We are not terrorists. We're not trying to overthrow the government of Jamaica. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to build our own people. We're trying to rebuild the dignity of our people and build up our community. It has to be understood that the defense of a right is an inalienable right in itself. That inalienable right cannot be overshadowed by some form of politics per se, that especially when there is no communication or discourse, right? There cannot be any stress, duress, and coercion to forcefully amalgamate people that are saying that we are first in time. No, that's a maxim of law. First in time is first in line, and based on it being that there is equity involved, and even if someone's saying there's equal equity at this time, it must be understood that the Maroons are the First Nation Jamaicans. Therefore, we cannot separate from ourselves. We are Jamaicans at the end of the day, but we're just saying that we have a right here first. No, the problem with that, Rattigan, is that our people have a disposition within our nature that them say bad mind, right, and grudgeful, that we cannot look upon people who look like us and say, wow, okay, you are indigenous and you have some special rights to land that maybe I don't have. And you know what the truth is, Rattigan, as you said earlier, we're all Maroons, right, in our nature. So therefore, you have people who can claim that right, but they rather not. They rather find some barrier of resistance to have a confrontation. But right now, I just want to take that time on behalf of Chief Richard Curry, the Accompong Maroons, and the indigenous people of Cockpit country to ensure that the world understands, the international community and the diaspora understands, and the rest of the fellow Jamaican citizens understand, and my Maroon brothers and sisters understand. We are not purposely looking for some fight with the government of Jamaica. We are not in some kind of military resistance or militia resistance. That is a falsehood. There's a propaganda going out there that is trying to create a turmoil between us and the government as we go forward. And I just look forward to a day where a lot of this propaganda ceases, when people can look towards peace and unity. Thank you, Rattigan.
All right. I know that time is at a premium, but a couple people, several people in the chat, they have expressed a willingness to help. Some of them have said that they want to invest with some farming initiatives and so on and so forth. And then, folks, just keep in mind that we have the financial details, meaning the Cash App. I think it's Cash App. Producer Joan just mentioned to me, but we have the wherewithal whereby you can fund the efforts going on in Accompong town, and we certainly hope that you will. So we're going to push it. We see the relief supplies as well. There is an initiative for that, so we're going to do that. Chief Curry, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you this. Give us, people, there's a mystique about the Maroons, and what I'd like you to do is give us a sense of your vision of Accompong, because when people hear about it, people are not thinking about development and especially on the economic level. They're not thinking about that. What are the plans to have Accompong realize economic success as other parts of Jamaica have?
Great question, Rattigan. Thank you so much for that question, right? A lot of the challenges Accompong has faced in the past is the ability to help others understand how they can invest and partner with Accompong. Why? Because of the gray area that exists, again, within legislature, right? We understand that our lands aren't taxed, our lands aren't under the registrar of titles, all these things. So investors, inherently would want to know, how do I secure my investment? How do these things work? So we've been having to do a lot of work in the background, creating that platform and deck for persons to understand how you can come and partner and work with us. So we've created several vehicles to provide avenues for persons to invest with us. What we have in surplus is land. We have a lot of land, a lot of arable, usable land. We have springs that we can access, tap into to provide irrigation. But we need the persons with the vision and the intention and the equity to come in and partner with us. So we've created a special zone for commerce and trade within the space, with the focus being on ecotourism, agriculture, and of course the heritage tourism, right? A lot of what we've been doing is based on that. So tourism has many aspects to it and layers to it. One particular is wellness tourism. Every region you go in the world has some version of its indigenous medicine tied into its culture and its offerings. We in the Caribbean have not pioneered that for what we know and call bush medicine, granny medicine. So we launched out on an initiative called Indigenous Caribbean Medicine Initiative, which Accompong would help spearhead alongside Dr. Ben Israel and other stakeholders to create a vision of wellness tourism, right? Where at the epicenter is using the indigenous knowledge mixed with a little bit of what has been learned and taught in years gone by to provide an environment for regeneration, for rejuvenation, for clarity, for health. And then we have the natural tourism, the trails, the caves, the hikes, the bird watching, the heritage sites, Maroon heritage sites. What we look at as, particularly around agriculture, right? We have always been known to grow good spice ingredients, pepper, ginger, turmeric, pimento, right? We were engaged in a project with JA Spice, which recently got canceled, right? But that program was seeking to push Jamaica Spice 50% in terms of output over a 4-year period. We were well on our way to recognize a contribution to Jamaica Spice because Accompong and the Maroons have and own the legacy of jerk. Jerk was created by, and what we learned from them was a means of preserving the meat by seasoning it, right? Wrapping it and burying it and keeping it for a while. You take it out and you put it over a fire and you roast it, and that became jerk, right? There's an equity that we have within the jerk segment. So from spices to sauces, seasonings, those are things we can pioneer, not only as a community, but as a household, because every house have their own little formula and their own little recipe. So there's so many things that we want to tap into, which is why we created the Accompong Technology and Entrepreneurial Center, which is now our emergency shelter and distribution center. That is the thought process, Rattigan, and that's where we're headed as a community.
All right. Folks, if you look on the screen, you see the account information where you can get your funds to the account.
Rattigan, are you hearing me or not? I didn't hear you just now.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Mic check. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Rattigan. I'm not sure if Chief Curry is having some issues.
Yeah. So, folks, it's on the screen. Screenshot that, please. And whatever you can contribute, just know that it's going toward a noble cause. This is not no scam, this is not no scam business. This is going towards help real people. And I know that some of you don't subscribe to the idea that government can do it, and for good reason. We won't discuss that now because that's not the point. The point is that we need to get disaster relief funding to Accompong to help our brothers and sisters there. Let me ask you a question that I hardly ever ask. Give me a question that I should have asked but didn't ask.
What's the question?
That's it. Just give me a question. Give me a question that I should have asked but didn't ask you. If you can answer that, a question that I should have asked but didn't ask.
Well, I will just say, Rattigan, I believe you pretty much covered a lot of what I would have wanted us to discuss tonight, unless Chief has something that we missed, because I think in terms of discussing the water machine and discussing discussing the water machine, discussing the hurricane relief, discussing how people can help Accompong, and understanding we're real people with real issues, understanding that we still have an unresolved issue in terms of mutual constructive dialogue with the government, and Chief Curry explaining how we plan to rebuild Accompong with the efforts of our international partners, our local partners, and of course the diaspora. And I think we've really much touched a lot of those topics tonight. But Chief, if I missed anything, please, I yield the floor to you.
Yeah, I think he did ask a question earlier, but I didn't answer him in terms of the recovery efforts that have begun so far. So happy to say that the primary school roof has been totally redone already by our donor, Ms. Carol Picard, we've been working with for the past year. She's also working on the community center to deck it so we don't have that roof issue again. So thank you to her and what she has been doing collaboratively with us. And the only other thing I'll say, maybe you haven't asked, is have any of the rumors that you see circulating on social media are true? And I said to you, none of them are true.
All right. I have a question. I just have one. And because Annu carries the title of ambassador, I'm going to throw this one in his direction. Now, you being in the Maroon community as a whole, through its representatives, has established a relationship with the UN and other international organizations, other Maroon communities. Now, Jamaica is getting aid to the tune of 6.8 or 6.7 billion US dollars. Are those funds, any of those funds, earmarked for the Maroon community? That's one. And two, please advise whether or not the Maroon community has secured funding through its international connections on its own. Has nothing to do with the government of Jamaica. Do you have funding coming in from other Maroon communities, assistance from other Maroon communities, from UN organizations, World Bank, whatever? So those are two questions. If you don't mind sharing your answers with us.
Right. Yeah, we've all heard of the large amount of money that is coming to Jamaica through the government. We have not been directly told if any of that is earmarked directly for Accompong or the Maroons in specific. We have been communicating or sending correspondences to various international organizations. Some have responded, some have reached out to us prior to us reaching out to them just to check. And we are currently looking into the various options for grant funding through the UN organizations, but none of the what was it, 6.2 billion? None of it has been communicated, or that any of that particularly has been earmarked for the Maroons. But I must say it is interesting in looking at it deeper that out of that 6.2 billion, I was told.
Can't hear. I think we've lost them. Di Marie made the point that the government is getting 3+ billions and the remainder is to be negotiated by private investors, totaling 6 point something. I think the negotiations by private investors, I think that is part of the funding that's coming, but that's earmarked for private investors, but it's still coming to the government of Jamaica. And, you know, we're concerned because if we have time, I'll show you how that money is going to be.
I'm apologizing, Rattigan. I actually have a small emergency at the room right now. Blessings, my brother. Blessings, D, and everybody. Yes, man. It's been a pleasure. Chief Curry, I will reach out to you shortly, Chief. The message. Thank you.
All right. Chief Curry, I know you have to go. Any parting words?
Well, again, I speak in the affirmative. We look forward to working in collaboration with the government to provide the assistance that's needed to Maroons and Jamaicans across the territory. So we look forward to hearing back and following up on conversations which began and started out well, and we hope can continue in a positively.
All the best, and thank you for coming on. Stay well, continue with the struggle, and we look forward to your continued success. It's one step at a time. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step.
And I correct you here, we're not going to continue with the struggle, we're going to emerge from the struggle.